Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be sharing my time today with the member from Laurentides-Labelle. Thank you very much for this opportunity to explain why Bill C-7 is constructive and responsible development in federal labour relations. As you know, this bill, if passed, will allow RCMP members and reservists to choose whether they wish to be represented by a bargaining agent independent of RCMP management. And the key features of the bill will include the requirement that the RCMP bargaining agent have as its primary mandate the representation of RCMP members, the exclusion of officers, those of ranking inspector and above, from representation, and the designation of the renamed Federal Public Sector Labor Relations and Employment Board as the administrative tribunal for matters relating to the RCMP bargaining unit, as well as grievances related to the collective agreement, should one be affected. The bill provides for binding arbitration as the means to resolve impasses and is in light of the essential nature of the work performed by the RCMP. As a standard in federal labor relations, the bill would require that to be certified as a bargaining agent, an employee organization would need the support of a majority of RCMP members in a single national bargaining unit. Mr. Speaker, the labor relations regime that this bill would create marks the beginning of a new era in the history of the RCMP. For the first time, RCMP members and reservists would have the same constitutional rights as other Canadians concerning collective bargaining. Mr. Speaker, it's the time that the RCMP had the opportunity to decide whether to exercise these rights itself. Our National Mounted Police have a storied past in Canada, in the settlement and development of our country, and in keeping peace across the land for almost a century and a half. Since its beginning in 1873, when the act established by the Northwest Mounted Police was introduced in this House by Prime Minister John A. Macdonald, the RCMP has been an integral part of our history, indeed our culture. From 1874 March West from Dufferin Fort in Manitoba to policing the Klondike Gold Rush to the St. Russ's Passage through the Northwest Passage to the vital roles in World Wars I and II, the RCMP have played instrumental roles in Canadian history. Yet, despite their long history, this bill is the first time these employees would have the right to freedom of association with respect to collective bargaining. Mr. Speaker, this is a right guaranteed to all Canadians by our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is a right the RCMP defend and should also enjoy. Mr. Speaker, members of the RCMP work with the goal of serving Canada and protecting Canadians. They are the people who protect the Governor-General, the Prime Minister, and other ministers of the Crown, visiting royalty and dignitaries, and diplomatic missions. They are our neighbours who participate in international policing efforts, who safeguard the integrity of our borders and provide counter-terrorism and domestic security. They are the Canadians who enforce our federal laws against commercial crime, counterfeiting, drug trafficking, and organized crime. Mr. Speaker, this bill helps support those who support us. It also acknowledges the importance of collective bargaining in the development of Canadian society. Since it was officially recognized in 1944, collective bargaining has helped lift many Canadians out of economic insecurity and poverty. Working Canadians in both English and French Canada have a long tradition of organizing themselves to negotiate for better working conditions and more secure lives for themselves and their families. Their struggles and triumphs have been essential to Canada's development. Our government recognizes that collective bargaining and Canadians' fundamental freedoms are vital to a healthy democracy in which people can pursue their livelihoods with a sense of fairness, security, and professionalism. And we promise to restore fair and balanced laws that acknowledge the importance of these unions in Canada. And that's what we have done, and that's what this bill continues to do. In December, the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour introduced legislation to repeal Bill C-377 and C-525. These two bills amended the Canada Labour Code, the Parliamentary Employment and Staff Relations Act, and the Public Service Labour Relations Act to restore procedures to the certification and the revocation of certification of bargaining agents to that which existed before June 16, 2015. The government, as you know, has also introduced legislation to repeal Bill C-59, which would have provided the authority to unilaterally override the collective bargaining process. This bill that we're considering today, which recognizes the right to collective bargaining for RCMP members and reservists, is another example of our commitment to fair and balanced labour relations. Mr. Speaker, fair labor relations need to be available to the brave men and women who put their lives on the line for us. This bill does that, and it demonstrates our respect for fundamental liberties and the values at the heart of our democracy. Mr. Speaker, in 1873, parliamentarians like us voted in this House to establish the Northwest Mounted Police. Today, we are here at the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the RCMP. We are considering whether, 143 years later, the men and women in our National Police Force should have the same fundamental freedoms as so many other Canadians enjoy. I urge all members to support the bill that would give them those freedoms and to vote with us to help those who help others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? Qu'est-ce que commentaire?